Hi and welcome everyone to our 22nd episode of The Little Inside. My name is, as you might have guessed, still Tobi, and this week we are having a look at the addiction to problems. So let's get started right after the intro. Have you ever considered that you might be addicted to problems, to suffering, to pain? Well, in a way we can say actually that most people in this world actually are addicted to problems, to suffering and to pain. I see it almost every day in our retreats, for example. Now, a retreat would be a time when you have 4 days in which you do not have to worry about anything. You don't have to worry about your future, you don't have to worry about your past. It's a real holiday. Yet, people love to worry, and I see it every day. They will come to the retreat and then they like the idea of mindfulness, like we all do. We love and like the idea of mindfulness. And they also know and feel that mindfulness, or being present, being aware, might be a way out of suffering, might be a solution to actually ruining your day. Most people directly know that most thoughts are pretty useless. You don't really need to worry about breakfast while you're showering, for example. You could also just enjoy your shower. You wouldn't have to worry about the meeting before the meeting. It's okay to plan for your meeting, but worrying about your meeting, going through all possible kind of horror scenarios before the actual meeting, does it really help? Is it really useful? So, of course, most of us realize that a majority of thoughts that we have each day is perfectly useless. So, with that in mind, why is it so hard for us to let go of thoughts? And here I'm talking particularly about those kind of thoughts that make you feel really negative. Like, let's say, for example, thinking about yourself as a failure. Wow, I'm not good enough at this. I will never make it. Everyone else, for example, in the retreat, everyone else is sitting so quietly, and here I am so fidgety and nervous. Why can't I seem to be just a bit more quiet, and so forth? All these kind of thoughts that make you feel so uncomfortable. Why? Even when we still know that it's totally useless to have these kind of thoughts, why do we keep on hanging on to these kind of patterns that are injecting pain into our being moment by moment? Answer is simple. 1, we're habituated to those patterns. 2, we are unaware that those patterns are running. And 3, we are also addicted to the pain they cause. Now, the reason for that is, why would we be addicted to such a thing as pain? It is not really you being addicted to pain. It is more like pain trying to stay alive. So pain tries to stay alive. I think Eckhart Tolle, he calls it like a pain body, like an actual kind of pain being inside of you that tries to stay alive. And the way for pain to stay alive is by feeding on pain. And how could you feed on pain? Well, by creating trouble in your head. For example, by worrying about what will happen tomorrow, or by feeling terrible about what happened just yesterday. You are creating pain for you right now. You're basically ruining your moment that you're having right now, and you're creating at the same time a cause for further unpleasant moments. In that way, pain kind of tends to stay alive. And if there is no problem, let's say you're just sitting on a retreat, in a holiday, in a beautiful room at a hotel next to the pool, and you're enjoying yourself, having a great time, you wouldn't have to worry about anything, yet you do worry. What are the other guests thinking about me? Before this guy, he kind of looked in an odd way at me. I wonder what he was thinking. Why do we keep doing this? Well, I said it before, because we are not mindful, we don't realize that this is happening. So in a way, we can't really say that we are doing this consciously, like you're doing a conscious action to hurt yourself. It kind of just happens in the background. And while it is happening in the background, then it leads to pain. And once the pain is experienced, then we have the next problem to solve. How do I get out of this painful state? And this is a problem for many on the spiritual path. They make the spiritual practice into the next kind of problem. How can I be better at meditation? I'm so distracted and so forth. And they keep beating themselves up using meditation as the reason, or their perceived failure in meditation practice. Now, these are all ways of pain to keep staying alive. And each time we are not mindful of it, we are not acknowledging it, seeing what's going on in our mind, we are very likely to nourish these kind of patterns. We keep these kind of habits alive. So the first thing, of course, like always, is establish mindfulness. Know yourself right now, right here. See what kind of state is your mind in. Probably as you're watching that right now, your mind is in a very receptive, open, listening state. Maybe not talking all too much, just open, aware. You might have different times during your day, maybe you're talking with your boss, that your mind assumes a certain shape. If you're talking to your spouse, your mind assumes a certain shape. And if you can stay aware of that shape and how your inner world is kind of working, then it's very easy to catch the moment when you are trying to make, or when your pain, to say, is trying to create new pain to feed on. And when that happens, you can stop nourishing your pain. And instead, what would you nourish instead? Well, as soon as you're becoming aware, you're nourishing awareness. So there are these two kind of states, you can actually say. There is a painful state of being lost and identified in an ever-changing, ever-rotating world, versus being aware that the mind is conditioned in such a way, that the body is conditioned in such a way, that nothing lasts. So there is no more upsetness about this. You're not suffering your life anymore, but you become aware of the sufferer. And that sufferer, that sense of self that attaches to the creation, the mental creation of a problem, and identifies itself with that heavily, and then suffers the result of this creation, that kind of sufferer, that sense of self, that me that has a problem and that suffers that problem, this kind of self, that is not original to you. This is something that you can actually observe. You can find space between you and this kind of personality condition that is going on. Like, for example, if you push a certain button, then it does this, and then you push another button, it does that. So, for example, when you come into the office of your boss, the personality gets into a certain shape, and you can observe that. Since you are the observer of that personality construct, that conditioned personality in your mind, how can you be that personality? So here in that instance, you are nourishing awareness by becoming aware of the personality. You are not nourishing the personality. So that's the way to end the addiction to problems, the addiction to pain and suffering. You're ending it by nourishing awareness. The ultimate antidote to all problems is the awareness of that problem. Now, of course, I'm not encouraging to just be aware and then kind of stay like a blank piece of paper. There is still an aspect of doing in your life. I've mentioned that in other videos and tutorials. But that doing doesn't have to necessarily come out of suffering. It can also come out of kindness or compassion. And when there is mindfulness, you're actually having a choice to act creatively and positively for the well-being of yourself and others. When there is no mindfulness, we are mostly kind of tied or bound up with the various painful patterns that are conditioned in our being. And so there is no breaking out from them. There is no breaking through to truth, your actual truth. But we always see ourselves through these kind of conditioned perceptions and viewpoints and so forth. So this is part of the painful process that hopefully leads to you waking up, realizing that it is completely unnecessary to suffer your thoughts, to suffer your perceptions, to suffer your views. That is unnecessary. It's even unnecessary to suffer our body, to suffer other people. It is unnecessary to suffer any aspect of life. And the answer, or the way out of suffering, is awareness, presence, consciousness, however you want to call it. It is the ability to disidentify, to let go of all impermanent conditions and allow them to be what they are without further nourishing them with your resistance to them or your attachment to them. So this is pretty much it. That's all that comes to mind for this week about the topic of the addiction to problems. So rather than nourishing the addiction with further buts and ifs and always coming back into these kind of old thought patterns again and again and again, learn to drop thinking. Come into silent present moment awareness. Come into life. Wake up out of the dream of thought and actually see what's real, what's happening right now. And you will find that in most cases, whenever you are looking into this present moment with awareness, you see that there is no problem to be found. Now, this practice takes training. It is not something to speculate about. It is not an intellectual kind of exercise that might stimulate you to go, yeah, but if that would be the case, then that kind of would be the case. You need to come into the actual experience of silence, learn to appreciate it, and see what it tastes like for yourself. And when you learn how it tastes like, you will feel the natural joy that's at the base of your being too. And so there will be no more questions on whether this is an efficient practice to keep you out of further problem making or not. We just have to taste it, we have to try it. And that's the whole point. So that's what I wish these little insights could inspire and help you with on your path. If you have any questions or comments, you can write them down in the comment section below or write me an email. Let me know how your practice goes. I'm always happy to see if this kind of little insight is working out for some people there. It's clearing up doubts or just motivating you to sit down and meditate and try things out and be a bit more like an explorer of the inner space. And well, I think that's good enough for this week. All right, guys, have a great next week. See you next Wednesday. Bye-bye.